הלב שלי נקרע לשניים, מה שלא ראתה שפחה למים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מרים פועם, ואין תרופה בעולם. הלב שלי מרים ידיים, כבר מועד לא עומד על הרגליים, שבר כלי שאין בו כבר מה, השמיים הם לי חומה, החרב אור בתוך הים ביבשה, ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. הלב שלי נקרע לשניים, חציו השם וחציו לשם שמיים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מרים פועם, ואין תרופה בעולם ללב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. ויש אוצר שמציק לצום, ואין ציר שיצעק לצור, רק אני מול ים שלם ולב שבור. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לקדש בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. אמיר עלייב. אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב ומרפא את הלב. הגיע הזמן להתעורר, לעזוב הכל, להתגבר, לשוב הביתה, לא לחפש מקום אחר. הגיע הזמן להשתנות, גם אם פספסנו תחנות, אפשר לרדת, יש רכבת, חזרה לשכונות. הכל אפשר רק אם נרצה, מחפש תמיד מוצא, גם אם הוא נמצא אי שם הרחק בזום. דלתות שמיים לא ננעלו, כשישראל קורא הצילו, אבא שבשמיים מגיע אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב אליו. הגיע הזמן להתחרט, אם כבר לברוח אז מאחת, אם כבר לקחת אז לקחת בשביל לתת. זה הזמן להתקרב, לא לפחד מהכאב, ואם לתת אז כבר לתת מכל הלב. כל אפשר רק אם נרצה, מחפש תמיד מוצא, גם אם הוא נמצא אי שם הרחק בקצר. דלתות שמיים לא ננעלו, כשהרבה קורא הצילו, אבא שבשמיים מגיע אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב. אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, הוא מוחל וסולח, מוחל וסולח, מושיט ידו לעזרה ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב אליו. כולם עכשיו זה הפזמון שאתם שרים, אפילו שעשינו משהו רע, מושיט ידו לעזרה ונותן ברחמיו את הכוח לתקן ולשוב. הגיע הזמן להתעורר, לעזוב הכל, להתגבר, לשוב הביתה. הלב שלי נקרא לשניים, מה שלא ראתה שפחה למים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מרים פועם, ואין תרופה בעולם. הלב שלי מרים ידיים, כבר מועד לא עומד על הרגליים, שבר כלי שאין באור כבר מה, השמיים הם לי חומה, החרב אור בתוך הים ביבשה, ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. הלב שלי נקרא לשניים, חציו השם וחציו לשם שמיים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מרים פועם, ואין תרופה בעולם ללב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. ויש אוצר שמציק לצום, ואין ציר שיצעק לצור, רק אני מול ים שלם ולב שבור. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. רק איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחול, לזכך את החול, לקדש בי הכל. רק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שבי, מרפא את הלב. אמיר עלייב.
The American Committee for Shaare Zedek Medical Center welcomes you to our 2021 Women's Virtual Health Day. This morning, we'll learn about aging and surrogacy from top doctors, see the hospital at work, and recognize the contributions made by two of Shaare Zedek's most dedicated lay leaders. And now, please welcome the American Committee for Shaare Zedek's CEO and one of your hosts, Rachel Wolf.
Good morning, and welcome to the Shaare Zedek Women's Division's Annual Health Day. Unbelievably, our second in a virtual format. It's hard to believe that we have now been living in these challenging days, certainly the hardest of my life, for more than a year. When we came together on Zoom last year, I thought for sure by April 2021 we would be back in person. Well, we have all learned this year that nothing in life can be taken for granted, most of all our health, or the predictability of where life will take us. Last year's Health Day took place during some of our darkest days, while today we stand at the brink of our redemption and a return to our regular lives. I just started my 20th year with Shaare Zedek, and though this hospital became inextricably linked to my heart and my very core from the start, this year more than ever proved to me just how lucky I am to be associated with this heroic hospital. The cutting-edge treatment of our patients, the insightful and industry-leading research that emerged, and above all, the compassion of our entire staff in treating patients fearing for their lives, who were cut off from their families, desperate for a warm and loving touch. The reputation we have as the hospital with a heart was earned over and over again these last 12 months, minute by minute. You can all be so proud of your association with our great hospital. So thank you. Thank you for your support throughout this pandemic. Thank you for putting your trust in us and for joining us today for this special event honoring Jessica Younger and the blessed memory of Faggy Schwartz. A special thank you to the architect of this event, Sharon Goldwyn, and our Women's Division President, Debbie Kestenbaum. We have a great program this morning which will impart great knowledge and great inspiration. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming our Director of Institutional Advancement, Sharon Goldwyn.
Good morning. Thank you for your gracious support of Health Day, where all the funds will be dedicated towards the crucial expansion of Shaare Zedek's emergency room. We are very grateful to all of you at this critical time. Our 2021 Health Day is truly special for many reasons. Most of all, because of our wonderful honoree, Jessica Younger, and our tribute in loving memory of Fegi Schwartz, Aleha HaShalom. Special thanks to our amazing 30 community chairs, our 230 committee members, our many generous Health Day sponsors, and all of our participants. Your involvement and enthusiasm this year has been amazing. Kudos to Shuli Levine, our Special Events Manager, for helping to make today possible, even as we work from a distance, as well as my colleague and friend, Rachel Wolf. Every year, as we begin planning for Shaare Zedek's Health Day, we try to identify the most cutting-edge doctors and most timely medical topics that will not only interest our participants, but will offer practical applications for their lives. This year, that topic is aging, and we are privileged to have Dr. Nir Barzilai, a leading physician and expert who will speak today. Dr. Barzilai is a chaired professor of medicine and genetics and director of the biggest center in the world to study the biology of aging at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. He studies families of centenarians that have provided genetic biological insights on the protection against aging. He is the author of more than 270 peer-reviewed papers and has been featured in major papers, TED Talks, TV programs, and documentaries. His book, Age Later, was published in 2020.
My name is Nir Barzilai. I'm a professor of medicine and genetics at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and the director of the Institute for Aging Research. I'm 55 years old, and I'm very much aware of my aging. I'm aware of the aging of all the people around me. In my family, I don't have longevity genes. In fact, my parents did not live long, and they are both sick for the last 5 to 8 years in their life, and it's heartbreaking. On the other hand, in my wife's family, there is longevity. This is Frida Buchwalter, my wife's grandmother. She died last year at age 102, but she was healthy throughout her life until 2 weeks before her death. You see her in this picture in her 100th birthday. At that time, the guy she was dating was 85, and she complained that they're getting a little bit too young for her. But she really demonstrated to me what's so fascinating about those people and how they must be an example, a biological example for something so significant.
How old are you now?
96 and 3/4.
Okay, I want to go to 90.
We started the longevity gene study in 1998. We recruited to our study 500 centenarians, over 500 centenarians now. We also recruited their offspring, their children, because their children are enriched with longevity gene. The goal of this longevity gene study is to understand how centenarians live so long. And we selected people that are 100 years old and yet they have full life and they enjoy their life to the fullest. And this is in spite of the fact that some of them are smoking and some of them are obese. What is it in their genetic makeup that allows them to get to this age and be healthy at this age? I should emphasize that our goal is coupled with the quality of life. We really want people to just live healthier rather than get age-related disease and suffer through them. I hope that in our lifetime, we will be able to use medicine in order to prevent the age-related diseases of aging and improve our quality of life as we age. We have a lot to do in this field, but the 100 years old are an inspiration. and they are showing us we can get to this maximal lifespan that we probably have, that is about 100 years old, and we can get there healthy, and we can get there with good quality of life. And I think it's our obligation as scientists to do that.
Please welcome Dr. Nir Barzilai.
Hello, this is such a pleasure to be here with you. I was a resident in Jerusalem in the 1980s, and Shaare Zedek was a small place, but it's not anymore. It's huge. Location is stuff, but really an incredible job, and I'm just happy that you're involved, and I'm happy to contribute for this event. And thank you for the organizer of this event. It's very nice thinking of me. And I have a really simple message, and that is that you know that aging has biology, because you know who's old and who's young. What many people don't know is that this biology is very flexible, and aging can be targeted. Aging can be delayed, aging can be stopped, and can be reversed in several situations. And I'm not saying there's no death, but aging the way it is should be over, has to be over soon. This idea that we have to accumulate disease after disease and their treatment, and the diseases are terrible and the treatments are terrible and the combination are even more, this is not how it should be. We know how to stop aging. And because aging is what driving these diseases, we should do it, and we can do it, and we will do it, and we'll do it right now. And now let me share a few slides with you. And I want to start with this slide that really shows you the relationship between age here and death from age-related diseases, and those diseases are here. Okay, and I'll give just example. You don't have to look at all the lines, but what I want to point out is that when we are old, then our risk of dying from any of those diseases is increased by a lot. The scale that you see here is logarithmic scale. It means, like for heart, our chances goes from 5 per 100,000 per year to 5,000 when we're over the age of 85. There's no greater risk for heart disease than aging itself. And if you get a heart attack and you get to the hospital, and in Shaare Zedek they do bypass, they do stent, but that's only for the heart. And it's no wonder that 2 years after your heart attack, you can get diabetes or Alzheimer or cancer, because we never did anything about aging. And the same story goes from cancer and for diabetes and Alzheimer and stroke. So aging is the major risk for age-related disease. Aging, its biology really drives those diseases. Now, what happened in the last decades, we had a hope that maybe we can do something about it, but we're much farther than a hope. We're in promised land. And we created a science that's called geroscience, the science of the old. And what we have agreed on as a community is that there are hallmarks of aging. And I'm not going to go over the hallmarks of aging in the short time that I have, but there are eight of them here. And how do you become a hallmark? You become a hallmark if we showed that we can intervene in any of those problems and extend health span and lifespan of variety of animal models. If that's what can happen, you can become a hallmark. And the important thing here is look how the hallmarks are interconnected to each other. You can fix one thing and it influences all the others as well. For example, we are all concerned with the immune dysfunction that makes the elderly such a target for viruses like the coronavirus or the flu. We also see inflammation that is the reason that is killing so many older adults. And you can correct both of them by treating the aging. You can also correct proteostasis and affect the immune function and the inflammation. And what we've done smartly as a society, as scientists, we looked at animals that live longer by variety of method, and that's how we made progress that is already relevant for therapy. So to put it in just 2 sentences, health span, and by the way, I'm all about health span. I don't care if people live long. My view is you decide what age, but you're going to be healthy, and that's it, and you'll die. We're not against that. We're not going to stop it. But we can instill health span, and as a side effect, we can affect lifespan too. And relevant drugs, some of them that are in human use, have been shown to target the aging. As an example here, I want to show you data from, it's in my lab, but we do it in many labs, where we take animals, in this case, rats, and in this study there were about 100 rats, and the ones in red, everybody was 100% alive in the beginning, and those guys in red got to eat whatever they wanted, and they eventually starting to survive less and less, and all of them were dead by 130 weeks. But if we take animals like that and we give them caloric restriction, then their health span is improved. It looks like they're achieving their maximum lifespan and die almost in one day. So caloric restricted animals live healthier and they live longer by a lot. And by the way, part of why they live longer is that we give them the food in the morning. It's not much food, but they are hungry. They eat it in the morning and then they are fasting. And that's why a lot of us are doing now 16-hour fast, and then we eat the food in 8 hours, because that's really how it's working in this caloric restricted animal. Another example is giving mice those 2 treatments that I mentioned before, metformin and rapamycin. And when you give it, you see that the ones that are not getting it are starting to die, but those that are getting it are living 24% longer. Okay, and I have many slides that prove this concept, that by environmental changes, by exercise, by drugs, we can target aging very effectively. So I want to introduce to you a part of the research subject in one of my labs, and those are the Kahn family. The Kahn family, I'm showing you 4 siblings that were born in New York City between 1910 and 1920. And what's unique about them is that all of them lived to beyond the age 102. The little sister died at 102. They were shocked. The big sister lived to be 110, 107, and 109. You know, what are the chances that siblings are born and living such a long time? Well, I told you that we did something smart. We look at longevity, and that's what I've done in this study. I took those 100 years old and their families to understand why their aging has been slowed. Okay, and that's what it is, why their aging has been slowed. And I have over 750 centenarians, and I have also their offspring and control, and there are several studies. But I want to tell you another interesting thing. They're all Ashkenazi Jews. They're Ashkenazi Jews because when you do genetic study, because that's what we're trying to do, the genes, the longevity genes, we're trying to find them. When you do studies like that, you have to use a very homogeneous population. It also happens that they are very similar in their education level and really socioeconomy factors that are causing big diversity in health in the United States. So it's good to have people who are so similar. We figured out that we need 50 times more people in order to get the same results if we don't use only the Jewish population here. And we found many things. We found also longevity genes, but I really want to make one point clear. We asked, do they get disease when everybody gets disease and then they live longer? or is their health span and lifespan comes together? And this is another kind of a survival thing, right? That everybody is 100% okay, but our control, they don't have longevity, they start getting sick at 60, and by 80, almost 90% of them have some form of a disease. While our centenarians are getting the disease much longer, in fact, 20, 30 years longer. So it's not only health span, it's not only lifespan, it's health span. It's because their aging is slower. And this is really important because even the CDC showed that the medical care in the last 2 years of life with somebody who dies over the age of 100 is third of that who dies between 60 and 70. We call it the longevity dividend. And we have to realize that if we're all becoming healthier, we're going to save money. It's not going to cost us more. One of the drugs that affects all the hallmarks of aging that I told you before is called metformin. And metformin is interesting because it's been in use for 70 years. In fact, it was used initially to prevent flu and malaria, okay, so immunity. But at that time, they noticed that it lowered glucose only in diabetic patients. And since then, metformin is the drug of choice for diabetes. And I'm pretty sure that one of you or your family are on metformin. It's the first drug of choice. It's generic and it's very cheap. It's almost the cheapest drug in the US market. And I'm conducting a study to show that that metformin targets aging and we can prevent lots of diseases to show how aging can be targeted. But I want to show you one really interesting results. A couple of weeks ago, this group reported on what happened to people who used metformin on mortality when they get COVID-19, okay? And as you know, age is a risk factor for death for COVID-19. So if you have higher risk, if you have no different risk, it's at 1. If you have a risk that's tenfold more, it's coming here. And if it's 0, it's coming here. And you can see here that age is a risk factor, male is a risk factor, obese is a male factor for death, right? All of them are between 5 and 8-fold risk. But look at people who use metformin. They have 67% less mortality than those who are not on metformin. It just shows you how one drug that is gerotherapeutic can make such a big effect on a disease like COVID-19. The future is really now. Look, you can get a sperm of a 70-year-old man and fertilize an egg of a 50-year-old woman. And we can measure the age of the sperm and egg. But what happened when this baby is formed, this is called blastocytes, okay? It erases the aging. We don't remember the age of our parents. We start from 0. We know how to figure it out in our body. So we're going to figure out and make much more impact of how we prevent aging, we extend health span and function and fun and quality of life much longer, and we can start right now. So let me stop sharing, and I'm back with you, and let me read some of the questions that I have here. Well, what do you do? What do you do? It's not about me. But I'm doing 2 things. I've been on metformin for a while because I was pre-diabetic. I'm not pre-diabetic anymore, but I'm on metformin. I'm also doing this diet, the 16-hour. I'm really skipping breakfast. You know, I end dinner, if it's 8 o'clock, I don't eat anything until 12, except I drink coffee without milk and sugar. And it improved a lot of my functions. It improved my sport capacity. It decreased my weight somewhat without trying, because it's not about eating less. It's just eating in different part of the days, and many people find it easier. There's some people say, no, I cannot skip breakfast, or they say breakfast is the most important meal in the day. It's not. It's only Kellogg's invented that. But people who can do it will find that it's very easy. So I'm doing that, and I'm on metformin. And I just want to say that I had a COVID-19 infection early on in the first week of April. And it was very mild. I continued to work through that. And the only thing, I still don't smell 100%. It came back very lightly, but I think it's because I'm using what we know about the biology of aging. Can Alzheimer also be prevented by targeting aging? Yes, and even metformin is associated with much less Alzheimer, metformin use. And not only that, there are several small studies, clinical studies, that showed that if you give metformin, it prevents the transit from mild cognitive impairment to Alzheimer. There are more papers like that every day, but they kind of prove the concept that the aging brain is a better target than whatever they tried before. I have a big rant from Alzheimer, from the Alzheimer part of the National Institute of Health, to study why our people are resilient to Alzheimer. Even if they have the genetic to Alzheimer, they don't get it. It's because their aging is slowed, and you don't get Alzheimer without aging. Even you have the genes for Alzheimer, it's not when you're 1 year or 10 year or 20 year or 30 year, you need at least 60 years. You need the aging in order to get the disease. What age should we start taking the drug? That's really a good question. There are going to be medicines for every age, okay? And it'll be personalized. We are developing medicines that are killing very old cells in our body that are accumulating and actually making things worse. It's called senescent cells or zombie cells. And if you take it when you're young, you don't have many of those. If you take it when you're really old, you have that. And that's where you have an effect. So I wouldn't start it at 50. I'll probably start it at 70 or 80. We'll have to see. Metformin, a lot of the studies started at 50. The study I'm doing is going to start at 65, but that doesn't mean that you cannot start it before. So I don't have a clear answer, but the concept that not every drug has to be used in combination is true. It's also true that sometimes the combination will get more of those hallmarks of aging ready also. If you increase health span, will you increase longevity? Well, I said, in my view, there'll be a commercial for this gerotherapeutics. And when it'll come to side effects, it'll say, you might live longer. And it's a side effect because I don't know if you can afford it. I don't know if you want it. That's how I see how it's going to be. Well, was a pleasure talking with you. I wish you well, and thank you to the organizer. Thank you.
The more I learned about Shaare Zedek, you could feel the passion. The fact that someone like little me from Manhattan could help, it's amazing.
Shaare Zedek is an incredible place. Jewish, not Jewish, Israeli, not Israeli. It makes no difference who you are.
There's something about it that is unique. It's more than just medicine. The people really care.
It showed me that there was more to being a doctor than just taking care of people. It's about the relationship they have with each patient. And it felt really special to be a part of that.
It is the most amazing place in the world. It's Israel. It's saving lives. It's people. It's what we like to say, a very sexy cause.
We literally are changing the field of medicine in Israel, and the last 15 years have been full of the most unbelievable accomplishments. But we have so much left to do. We have great ideas, and big ideas need big people.
This is the first time I ran for a charity, and it was a wonderful opportunity and turned out to be something far greater than that.
For me, it wasn't about the time. It was about the money, the experience. It's contagious. It's easy to get on board and get behind it.
Little did I know that this is by far the best way for me to give back to Israel. A lot of people said, how the heck are you going to raise money from a bowl-a-thon? Now, it's the best college charity event out there. We raised $600,000 over the past 5 years, which helps tens of thousands of people, if not more.
And children's champion events are fun, they're social, they're gregarious, while supporting a great cause.
Everything about Israel and children coming together in one place really made me feel like I was going to be doing something to make a difference.
One of the things I found most exciting is the trips that we've taken around the world. Not only did we have unbelievable time seeing some of the most wonderful sights that you can see in the world, it was a wonderful opportunity for us to meet new people.
It was a wonderful trip, and at that point I just felt very confident doing things on behalf of Shaare Zedek because I knew that whatever you do for the hospital is going to be for the benefit of the people of Jerusalem. It was just very, very rewarding.
They are the ones on the front lines, and they're not making judgments about who to treat, where to treat, what to treat. They're there. It was very easy to be a part of that, and it was quite an honor.
Whether it's a teddy bear or a NICU, being able to give back, you really feel like you're part of something.
It's multi-generational. In my own family, it was my parents, myself, my children. It becomes a passion. It is really, in the true sense of the word, amazing. And we need to carry on the legacy.
Today, I have the great honor of introducing our memorial honoree, a woman I was so proud to call one of my best friends. Faggy Schwartz was one of the most kind-hearted, dedicated, and driven women I have ever met. I so wish we could be presenting this well-deserved award to her in person, but of course, she never wanted to be in the limelight. She preferred to work tirelessly behind the scenes. Faggy, we miss you every day, but know that the impact of all that you accomplished by our great hospital will never, never be forgotten.
From my earliest memories, starting with my mother and then Faggy, there was always an involvement with Shaare Zedek. You know, after the war, people like my family who had, left everything and come to nothing. Shaare Zedek was emblematic of that hope for a new life.
My mother, being the children of Holocaust survivors and having survived the war herself, my grandparents and my mother were always involved in health, in making sure that people were well, and Shaare Zedek represented that.
So when Faggy and Mort were married and they moved to New York, it was the single organization that was closest to her heart. Faggy was passionate about Shaare Zedek, and she was tireless in her devotion for the hospital.
What she loved about her involvement was the people.
My mom had collections of different friends. She would meet one person from Italy, and then she would invite 20 people from Italy. Not that she knew any of them. You know, she had from all different countries.
And politicians.
Being the youngest grandchild, I always remember at the Shabbat table, there was always people from all over the place, and my grandma was always very open, and everyone was welcome into her house.
She was like a magnet for interesting people, and part of her people collecting was inspiring other people to feel the passion that she felt.
Faggy loved people. and she was a true Shaare Zedek lay leader and was always thinking about how she could get more people involved to help the hospital.
I felt that her dedication to Shaare Zedek got me enthusiastic. She was dedicated to the organization and to her family, and she had a way of winning people over.
Fagi had exuberance. She had an all-encompassing smile. She embraced everybody. She had an optimism.
She always helped anyone who was in need, and that's also one of the things that she was very involved in and loved about Shaare Zedek, because Shaare Zedek was always trying to help people.
My mother-in-law had a deep love for Israel, and I think when she moved to Israel, she came full circle. She had raised money and done so much work for Shaare Zedek in New York, and now living in Jerusalem, being able to see the fruit of her labor, it was really so important to her.
In the last few months of my mom's life, my mom became very, very sick. And she was admitted to Shaare Zedek, and because of the efforts of so many of the people there, she was able to leave the hospital and go home. And she was home for about a month and a half. And I would say that month and a half was probably the most precious month and a half of her life. It was incredibly special for her.
People go through life and don't leave any footprints. Fagi left deep impressions, and I will miss her always.
My mother loved people, but more than loving people, she loved the idea of doing the right thing.
She was a doer, and she was a good doer. Her optimism, her heart, and positivity were really something to learn from and truly embodied the values of our hospital.
If you are dedicated to your cause, you just put your whole heart and soul into it, and that's what she did. And hopefully, we will try to emulate Fagi for what she was.
Fagi Schwartz was truly a special woman. We will always remember her. Although we miss seeing you all in person and look forward to coming together, one of the silver linings today is that we will have the opportunity to hear from a Shaare Zedek doctor in Israel, who was one of the most brilliant and humble men you will ever encounter, whose vast expertise in Jewish medical ethics is unmatched. Rabbi Dr. Avram Steinberg is one of Shaare Zedek's crown jewels, and he currently serves as the director of our ethics unit. He is the author of the Encyclopedia of Jewish Medical Ethics and was the Israel Prize Laureate in 1999 and recipient of the Worthy Citizen of Jerusalem Award in 2020. He recently retired as one of the hospital's senior pediatric neurologists. Beyond his pages and long resume, Dr. Steinberg is a warm, compassionate, erudite scholar who has revolutionized the field of Jewish medical ethics and brought comfort to so many during the challenging and emotionally difficult times. Dr. Steinberg will speak to us today about the topic of surrogacy. Who is the mother? Please welcome our special colleague and friend, a man who brings heart and vision to every patient and issue, Rabbi Dr. Avram Steinberg.
This presentation is pre-recorded in my office at Shaare Zedek Hospital. I am here chairing the IRB Commission, as well as the director of the Medical Ethics Unit of the Medical Center. And the topic that we are going to discuss in the next few minutes are related to some of my work in the ethics and halachic aspects. The topic to be discussed relates to relatively new infertility treatments, namely egg donation or surrogacy. We are talking about women who, for medical reasons, are either lacking eggs, such as women who have no ovaries or have hormonal problems, sometimes also have genetic problems, so that their eggs are not fit for creating a new child, or women who cannot carry the pregnancy either because their uterus is missing or for serious medical conditions that prevent the woman from the stress of pregnancy and delivery. In either case, there are solutions nowadays. In the case of lacking of ovary and the like, we can get an egg donated from another woman. And in the case of lack of a womb, the pregnancy can be carried out in a surrogate woman who agrees to carry the pregnancy for the couple. These are tremendous achievements in infertility treatments for women who otherwise would be totally infertile, and obviously it's a great blessing for a woman to be able to have a child that at least partially belongs to her. However, like any major achievement, there are legal, ethical, and halachic questions that have to be discussed and solved to the best of the ability, so that the women that are needing these particular technologies will have a child that will be okay, not only medically, but also socially. Let me start with the first question. And the question is, who is the mother? The reason that we ask this question is that fatherhood is determined by the sperm only, so that if a male gives his sperm and a child is being born out of this sperm, he is the father, and it doesn't matter whether the child was born in the regular relationship or by sperm donation. In any way, that defines a father. A mother has two parts to her definition. One is that she has to supplement the other 50% of the genetic material, so that the sperm gives 50% and the egg gives the other 50%, but she also has to carry the pregnancy and deliver. Up to the inventions of egg donation or surrogacy, it was always the same woman who gave her genetic part and carried the pregnancy and delivered. Nowadays, we can separate the two functions of motherhood into two different women. One woman that gives the genetic material and one woman that carries the child and delivers. So what constitutes motherhood? There are four options to resolve this question. One option is to say that the genetic material is really what counts, that is what makes the fetus, and therefore the woman who gives the egg is the mother, and the woman who carries the pregnancy and delivers is sort of an incubator that is irrelevant to the definition of motherhood. We can argue on the other side that actually carrying the pregnancy and delivering is the real bonding between the developing fetus and the mother, and therefore this is what creates motherhood. And the egg, which is the genetic part, is sort of a chip made in Japan that is really irrelevant to the definition of motherhood. A third option is that neither of the women is a mother, because you can't have half a mother. Either you are a full mother or you are not a mother, like you can't be half pregnant. And therefore, either one woman does both parts of motherhood, or none is a mother, because each only does half of the definition of a motherhood. And a fourth option is that both are mothers, meaning that since we are unable to decide which part is more important in the definition of motherhood, we will define, in this case, each of the two women as being mothers, at least for the strict application. Why is it important to decide who is the mother? There are many ramifications to this decision, and from a halachic point of view, I'll give just a few examples. For instance, we all know that Jewishness is defined by the mother only. The father is irrelevant for the definition of Jewishness. So if, for instance, one woman is Jewish and the other woman is not Jewish, is the child Jewish or not? For instance, if we're talking about a woman who has no ovaries and she gets an egg donation from a non-Jewish woman, and she is Jewish, she carries the pregnancy and delivers, is the child Jewish or not? Based on the fourth decision that I just mentioned, namely that both are mothers, so this child has a mother that is not Jewish, and therefore the child will require conversion because he would be considered non-Jewish. Same is true for the opposite. If the woman of the couple has no uterus, and therefore she gets a surrogate woman to carry the pregnancy, but the egg is hers, and the sperm is her husband's, and both are Jewish, but the surrogate woman is a non-Jewish woman. In this case as well, if we consider both to be mothers, the child will require conversion. That is currently the ongoing acceptance amongst the rabbinic courts and amongst the leading rabbis, that we consider both women to be mothers, and for instance, for the question of conversion, in either case, if one is not Jewish, the child will need conversion. Another aspect to this dilemma is, who can this child marry? So that if we would say that one of the two is the mother, then obviously he can't marry a sibling from this woman. But if we say that both are mothers, then he can't marry siblings from either woman. And therefore, we need to tell him who the other partner of his creation was. That is a very important aspect in Jewish law, and to my opinion also from an ethical and a legal point of view, it should be that way, meaning that the child should know at some point, certainly before he gets married, who was the other partner, whether it was an egg donor or a surrogate woman, in order for him not to marry half a sibling, which would create a mamzerut condition of his children, namely a bastard or an illegitimate child, because two siblings who marry and have a child, halachically the child is illegitimate. And there are many other ramifications on who is the mother. So to sum up this point, there is a dispute amongst rabbis, as well as in the ethical spheres, as well as in the legal spheres. How do you define motherhood as opposed to fatherhood, which is an easier definition? And the current acceptance, at least from a halachic point of view, is that we define both as mothers, and therefore we need to know who the two women are in order to avoid the marriage of siblings, in order to decide whether the child is Jewish or not, and similar other aspects. Now, from a legal point of view, in Israel, in 1996, Israel was probably the first, or at least one of the first countries who legislated and regulated by law surrogacy. At that time, the decision was in two important aspects, or three important aspects, many in the law, but time doesn't permit to go into all the details. One is that surrogacy in Israel is permissible only for a couple of a man and woman, so that a gay couple or a single person, whether a male or a female, cannot get surrogacy in Israel. Second, it was assumed that it is preferable from halachic point of view and probably also from some psychological aspects that the surrogate woman would be a single woman and not a married woman. According to a minority positions amongst rabbis, even if the child is born by surrogacy and not by direct relationship between the married woman and a foreign male, the child is illegitimate. And therefore, if it is a married woman who is carrying the fertilized egg with a sperm of a male who is not her husband, that might create a problem on the child. Subsequently, it turned out that there are almost no single women who would agree to become pregnant for the first time and not married for the sake of other people and not for her own sake. And therefore, it was almost impossible to find such surrogate women. And therefore, the regulation changed, and now it is permissible for a married woman also to become a surrogate in Israel. And the reason that it became allowed was that the majority of the rabbis agreed that illegitimacy is only when there is a direct relationship between a married woman and a male who is not a husband. But since here there are no such relations, and it's only a fetus that was created in the lab and implanted in a womb, the child is a legitimate child, and therefore it is permissible. The third issue is, how do you get surrogacy to be justice and medically reasonable for the surrogate woman? We all know that pregnancy per se and delivery carry with them all kinds of complications, and there might be serious problems, and therefore it should be a healthy woman within age limits that make sense, and that the husband, if it's a married woman, agrees to the procedure. And the payment is a delicate issue in Israel. It was decided that it should be voluntary, but expenses should be paid by the couple that wants the surrogate woman to carry the pregnancy for them. Currently, the going rate is around 150,000 shekel for a surrogate, which is probably more than the real expenses, but it's within reason that it's only for expenses. The reason that we were careful about that in Israel is that we don't want women who have difficulty to carry the pregnancy, medical or psychological difficulties, just for the money. And therefore, the money should not play an overriding role in her agreement to carry the pregnancy for someone else. In order to make sure that indeed all the aspects are dealt with correctly, every surrogacy has to get the approval of a special committee that only with their approval surrogacy can go on. This special committee is composed of physicians, social workers, psychologists, legal advisors, and religious advisors. And only if they approve it can the surrogacy go on. And obviously they are looking into the best interest of the surrogate woman so that she will not be damaged by her agreement to become a surrogate. To date, since 1996, when the law was enacted, until last year, there were close to 1,500 surrogacy cases in Israel, out of which around 900 children were born, some singles, some twins. There were a few cases of even triplets. The committee usually has approved the surrogacy because it was clear a priori that they will have to agree, and therefore the choice was in that direction. There were a few refusals, and that is the current status in Israel. As opposed to some states in the United States, primarily California, Illinois, and very recently New York and New Jersey, where it became a commercial commodity to get surrogacy. You pay a good amount of money for it, and it is also allowed not only for heterosexual couples, but also for gay couples and for single males or females. That at the moment is forbidden in Israel. I don't remember any case that a surrogate woman decided to abort the fetus during the pregnancy. I think it is because these women are chosen very carefully, and since they're doing it in an altruistic way, they obviously don't want to ruin the chances. And if they are totally healthy, as the committee is checking, there is little reason for terminating the pregnancy, and therefore I don't remember any case. Also, I don't remember any case in Israel that the surrogate mother went back on the agreement, and when the child was born, she decided to take the child and not give it to the couple that ordered this surrogacy. It's usually done by agreement, and everyone knows what it will be at the end, and therefore it runs smoothly. And finally, one other point, and that is, what does the Israeli law say about who is the mother? Because we said this is a question that is not only halachic, it's also ethical and legal. And therefore, Israel in 1996 invented a new definition. The legislators didn't want to go into the question who is the mother, because there is no clear decision how to define it. And therefore, if it is a surrogacy situation, the surrogate woman comes to deliver. When she delivers the baby, the husband of the couple that ordered the surrogacy is registered as the father, because as we said, the sperm donor is always the father, so that is easy. But no mother is registered at delivery. Within 7 days, the couple has to appear before a judge, and the judge rules a special definition which is called a status of parenthood, so that the inviting couple become parents, including the mother, by law, not by the definition that she is indeed the full biological mother. The consequences are the same as if she would have been decided to be the mother, but the principle is that it's a parent by legal decision and not by principal decision. That is a way out, so that the couple will have the child growing up as a normal child that has parents, without the blemish of knowing at the moment when he is a child that actually there was a surrogacy involved. As I said, in order for him to get married, it will be important in his future to know who the surrogate mother was, so that he won't marry a sibling from this surrogate mother. There are states in the United States that adopted the same procedure. There are other countries in Europe that adopted it, but there are also countries and states that defined a priori the mother as being the mother of the couple, as being the full mother and not waiting for a court order. However, in the reverse situation, when an egg donation was done, the egg was given to the woman of the couple. She carried the pregnancy, she came to the hospital and delivered the child. That socially wouldn't make sense to say she's not the mother and will wait within 7 days to get a judge order. And therefore, the law on egg donation in Israel is that the both the father and the mother are registered right away as father and mother, despite the fact that it is not decisive that she is really the full mother. There is a clause in this particular legislation that for religious reasons such as conversion if is needed or marriage when time comes, that does not mean that this woman is the full mother, and therefore the rabbinic authorities will have to look into it to make sure that he is a full Jew or needs a conversion, and to make sure that he doesn't marry a sibling from the egg donor. So these are some of the issues that this complex situation calls for. There are, as I said, solutions, and actually it's running quite well in Israel, and I think now in many states in the United States. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Steinberg. We thank you for sharing your incredible wisdom with us. Today we are honored to be paying tribute to a woman I am so very proud to call my friend, Jessica Younger. Her poise, her leadership, her kindness, and her creativity are just some of the reasons we are here to say thank you today. You'll hear in a minute more about Jessica, but let me start off by sharing this cute story that she once shared with me. Shaare Zedek has clearly always been a household name in the Younger, Lehrer, Nagel family, but one day, Jessica's son Murray came home from school and said, "Mommy, today during davening for Rosh Chodesh, we said Hallel. Did you know that the Hallel talks about Shaare Zedek? It really must be the most famous hospital ever." Well, Murray, thanks to all that your mom and your entire family have done for our hospital, I guess you could say Shaare Zedek really is the most famous hospital, or at least it is the most beloved.
It's a funny thing to say, but I actually can't remember a time in my life where I didn't know the name Shaare Zedek. It really is part of my family's DNA. I've been privileged to visit Shaare Zedek many times throughout my life. In the beginning, I was really just a child, and I was following along in my parents' footsteps or my grandparents' footsteps. But as I grew up as an adult, I was really overwhelmed in my visits to Shaare Zedek. It was so clear that it was more than just a hospital.
Her family's multi-generational commitment and connection to the hospital is legendary. But from the start, I love Jessica's humor, her sarcasm, her energy, and her understanding of what it means to be a committed and passionate lay leader.
She is resourceful, hardworking, and competent. I know we can always count on Jessica to get others involved.
The Women's Health Day was an event that really spoke to me. It says, come and learn something new, support this great organization, socialize, enjoy yourself, and I couldn't really think of something that made more sense to me in supporting a hospital that I love.
Jessica is one of the most unique people I know. She's, an accomplished businesswoman. She is a mother, she's a friend, she's a sister. She does so much for so many and does everything beautifully.
She still finds time to care for those things that are important to her. She cares for her community, she cares for her synagogue, she cares for her children's yeshiva day school, and she does everything with a full heart.
She's involved with so many different causes and organizations. She takes after her mother. It's in the blood, and Esther takes after her mother, and it's in our blood, and Shaare Zedek is certainly at the top of the list.
It's no secret that she's aggressive and assertive, and when she believes in something, she voices her opinion and she rallies those around her to participate.
People gravitate to her and want to be involved in what she's involved in because she cares so much, and you see it, and that draws people in.
Inspiring her friends and her own network to get involved is just simply the way Jessica looks at the world. Working with Jessica as a co-chair for Women's Health Day these last years is like a dream come true. She has taken what was really just an inspiration from a family, and she's made it her own.
From the moment I met her, you knew how important this cause was to her because of her grandparents and her parents and the commitment they've shown to her and how important chesed is. But something that really inspires me is seeing how she's pass that along to her children.
She decided that in lieu of birthday gifts, she was going to collect money for her children's birthday and donate it to the Children's Hospital at Shaare Zedek.
She was not doing gifts for her children. They had enough, thank God. They would be donating money and taking gifts for the children at Shaare Zedek. And I think she just always has that sense of responsibility for the community at large.
This is something that my husband and I definitely look up to Jessica and Danny in how they raise their children and show them the importance of giving back, specifically to Shaare Zedek.
Danny and I, there is really nothing in our lives that is more important to us than our connection to our Yiddishkeit and our Judaism and our connection to Eretz Yisrael.
To see Jessica, my wife, the mother of my children, playing such a critical, instrumental role in the advancement of the most important institutions that we have in Israel and amongst the Jewish people, it just engenders such a sense of pride that I have in her and pride that I have in the household that we've built.
We really need to make sure that a hospital like Shaare Zedek always has the ability to do what they do best, to treat the people who live in Israel, to treat the people who are visiting Israel, and to advance medical technology and innovation throughout the world. Being involved was natural. It is beloved for us, and it is our charge. It is my charge. I feel it's my responsibility. I really encourage everyone to connect with this hospital. It's a hospital that treats everyone who walks through the door with humanity, with kindness. I can't imagine anything that would make me feel better than knowing that I'm connected to that, to ensure that the future of that hospital grows and thrives.
What a beautiful tribute to Jessica Younger. Jessica, we are so proud to have you as part of our Shaare Zedek family. Thank you all so very much for being here with us today. We really miss seeing everyone in person and are so grateful for your continued friendship, support, and love this past year and always. COVID-19 had catastrophic ramifications for the financial well-being of our hospital. But thanks to you and our friends around the world, the hospital has been able to continue to serve heroically as a world leader in the fight against this devastating disease. As the end of this pandemic comes closer, your continued support is as critical as ever. Our next two projects have vast implications for the people of Jerusalem and Israel. We are currently expanding our emergency room, and we are also building a brand new cancer center whose aesthetic butterfly design has already won many awards. Please continue to support all that we do and share our message of compassionate, cutting-edge healing with your family and friends. We welcome you to come visit once travel resumes so that you can see for yourself just what an amazing and special place Shaare Zedek truly is. Thank you for joining us for Health Day, and we wish you and your family a wonderful Shavuot in the coming weeks.
Thank you for attending the American Committee for Shaare Zedek's Women's Virtual Health Day. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge our amazing sponsors who made this morning such an enormous success.
זה השער להשם, צדיקים יבואו, צדיקים יבואו. We go on, yes we go on. There is nothing we can overcome. We are strong, yes we are strong. Holding firm and our troubles will be gone. I'm Yisrael Chai, we are here to stay. We keep going. We are meant to be for eternity. Lo netzach. I'm Yisrael Chai, that will never change. We keep going. לוחצים, לפעמים קשה לראות האור. ולבסוף נופלים הם, ונמשיך להתקיים, כי נצח ישראל לדור ודור.